Your soulmate is holding back a secret they never wanted you to know. Don't wait, open this now. My beloved child. There is a reason your soulmate has been stopping themselves every time they come close to telling you everything. It is not because they have nothing to say. It is because the truth they have been carrying feels too important to reveal carelessly. Somewhere behind their silence is a confession they never planned for you to discover this way, and the closer they feel to you, the harder that silence becomes to maintain. Don't skip, because what appears to be distance may actually be the exact opposite. Imagine someone opening a message, typing several lines, staring at them for a long moment, and then deleting every word before pressing send. Imagine them rehearsing a conversation when nobody is around, only to lose their courage when the opportunity finally arrives. That is the emotional tension surrounding this secret. Your soulmate may have tried to convince themselves that keeping quiet would make everything easier, but something inside them keeps returning to you. They remember conversations differently now. Small moments suddenly carry enormous meaning. Things you said casually have remained in their thoughts far longer than you might expect. And there is one particular realization they have been unable to escape: their feelings became serious before they were prepared for them. Stay till the end, because that is only the surface of what they have been afraid to admit. Their secret is connected to a decision they quietly made about you, a decision that could completely change how you understand their hesitation. They once believed they could keep their emotions under control, take their time, and reveal nothing until they felt completely certain. But then something changed. A moment happened when they imagined their future without you being present in it, and instead of feeling relieved, they felt an emptiness they could no longer explain away. That was when the secret became impossible for them to ignore. They realized you were no longer simply someone they cared about. You had become someone whose absence could genuinely change the shape of their future. And that frightened them, not because loving you felt wrong, but because it suddenly felt real. Don't skip. Something huge is waiting for you, because the biggest revelation is not that they developed feelings. It is what they quietly started imagining after those feelings became impossible to deny. Here is where everything becomes deeper. Your soulmate has been hiding the fact that they have already pictured a completely different chapter of life with you in it. Not a fleeting fantasy. Not some passing thought that disappeared the next morning. They have imagined ordinary days with you, the kind of moments nobody celebrates publicly but that become precious when someone truly matters. They have wondered what it would feel like to hear your voice after a difficult day, to share good news with you first, to laugh about something nobody else would understand, and to know that when life becomes uncertain, there is still one person beside them who feels familiar. But there is another layer they have never wanted you to know. At some point, they began questioning whether they were truly ready to become the person you deserved. That question created the silence you may have noticed. They did not want to step forward with beautiful promises and then disappoint you later. So instead of revealing everything, they began watching themselves more carefully. They questioned their timing. They examined their choices. They wondered whether their life was stable enough, whether their heart was courageous enough, and whether they could offer something lasting rather than temporary excitement. Stay till the end, because this is where the secret takes an unexpected turn. Their hesitation was never only about whether you would accept them. They were also afraid that if you discovered how deeply they had already imagined you in their future, you would suddenly see every emotion they had worked so hard to conceal. That is why certain conversations may have ended too quickly. That is why certain words may have remained unfinished. That is why they may have appeared calm while their mind was racing with everything they wanted to tell you. And somewhere in that silence, another realization arrived: waiting forever could cost them the very connection they were trying to protect. They began understanding that silence has consequences too. If they keep hiding behind uncertainty, you could eventually believe they simply do not care. You could continue forward without ever knowing what was sitting behind those unfinished sentences. And that possibility changed something inside them. Something huge is waiting for you, because now the question is no longer whether they have a secret. The question is how much longer they can keep carrying it before their behavior reveals everything for them. And now comes the detail they never expected would become so difficult to hide. There is something they want to say directly to you, but every version of that conversation leads to the same terrifyingly vulnerable moment. They would have to admit that you affected them more deeply than they intended. They would have to tell you that behind the hesitation was attachment, behind the silence was thought, and behind those moments of distance was someone trying to understand feelings that had grown much larger than expected. Don't skip, because the next revelation changes the meaning of the entire story. Your soulmate may have once promised themselves they would never become emotionally dependent on another person's presence. Perhaps experience taught them to move carefully. Perhaps they became comfortable protecting their private world. Perhaps they believed that keeping certain feelings hidden was safer than risking disappointment. Then you entered the picture, and those old rules stopped working. Suddenly, they cared whether you misunderstood them. They noticed when your energy seemed different. They wondered what you were thinking after conversations ended. They replayed moments they would never admit mattered so much. And eventually, they reached the realization they had been resisting: this connection was asking them to become more emotionally honest than they had been before. Stay till the end, because there is still one secret beneath all of this, and it is the one they never wanted you to discover before they could explain it themselves. They have been preparing for a choice. Not a dramatic promise made in a rush, but a personal decision about whether they will finally stop hiding and allow you to see what has been happening inside them. Something huge is waiting for you, because once that decision is made, their silence will become much harder to maintain. You may notice it first through something small, a message that feels different, a conversation that lasts longer than usual, a question that suddenly becomes more personal, or a moment when they almost reveal too much and then become quiet. Pay attention to the emotional meaning, not imaginary guarantees, because this story is about what someone may feel when fear and affection collide. And there is one final detail you need before everything makes sense. The secret they are holding back is not simply about how strongly they feel about you. There is another reason they waited. Another conversation happened behind the scenes. Someone close to them asked one question about you that they could not answer without exposing the truth, and what your soulmate finally admitted in that moment changed everything they thought they could continue hiding. The question came when your soulmate least expected it. Someone close to them looked directly at them and asked, "If this person means so much to you, why are you still pretending they don't?" For a moment, your soulmate had no answer. They tried to laugh it away. They tried to change the subject. But the person sitting across from them had already noticed too much. The sudden silence whenever your name came up, the way their expression changed when someone mentioned relationships, the strange mixture of happiness and nervousness whenever they thought about reaching out to you. And then your soulmate finally admitted something they had never intended to say aloud, because if I tell them how serious this has become for me, everything changes. Don't skip, because that sentence was only the beginning. The person listening immediately asked what serious actually meant, and your soulmate became quiet again. They could have given an easy answer. They could have said they simply liked you. They could have described you as someone special and ended the conversation there. Instead, after holding back for what felt like forever, they revealed the truth. They had already started measuring future decisions by whether those decisions could bring them closer to you or push them farther away. That admission surprised even them. Until they heard themselves say it aloud, they had not realized how much space you had quietly taken inside their plans. Stay till the end, because what happened next made hiding their feelings much more difficult. The person they trusted asked another question, then what exactly are you waiting for? And suddenly every excuse disappeared. Timing. Uncertainty. Nervousness. Pride. None of those explanations sounded powerful enough anymore. Your soulmate realized that underneath all those reasons was one simple fear. They were afraid to show you the full depth of their feelings and discover that you might not feel the same way. That possibility had kept them trapped between moving closer and protecting themselves. But then the conversation took an unexpected turn. The person beside them said something that stayed in their mind long after the conversation ended. You're so busy protecting yourself from losing them that you may be creating the distance that actually makes you lose the opportunity. Something huge is waiting for you, because those words struck the exact place your soulmate had been avoiding. Suddenly they began thinking about every moment when they wanted to say more but stopped themselves, every message they almost sent, every opportunity they allowed to pass because tomorrow felt safer than today. And for the first time, they started wondering whether their secret was protecting their heart, or quietly standing between them and the future they actually wanted. That night, something inside them shifted. Your soulmate could not simply return to the old pattern because now someone else knew. Their secret had finally existed outside their own thoughts, and hearing it spoken aloud made everything feel more real. They began replaying the conversation, especially that question. What are you waiting for? Don't skip, because this is where their hidden truth becomes even more surprising. Your soulmate was not only afraid of telling you how they felt. They were afraid you might ask the one question they had never prepared themselves to answer: how long have you felt this way? Because the truthful answer could reveal that this started much earlier than you probably realize. There may have been a particular interaction when something changed inside them. A conversation that seemed ordinary to you, a moment when you showed kindness without expecting anything back, a time when you simply listened, or a small detail about your personality that made them see you differently. They remember that moment because afterward, something felt different. They started noticing you more. They remembered details. They became curious about the things that mattered to you. They began wondering what made you smile, what made you pull away, what kind of future you wanted, and whether there might someday be room for them inside it. Stay till the end. The deeper secret is that they tried to make these feelings disappear. They told themselves it was temporary. They became busy. They focused on other things. They attempted to behave as though nothing meaningful had changed. Yet every time they thought they had regained emotional distance, something reminded them of you again. And that pattern forced them to confront something they could no longer comfortably deny. Perhaps they were not trying to forget you at all. Perhaps they were waiting for enough certainty to justify taking the emotional risk. But certainty never arrived in the perfect form they expected. Instead, something else arrived: urgency. Not panic. Not pressure. Just the quiet understanding that meaningful opportunities do not always remain open forever. Something huge is waiting for you, because now your soulmate is considering something they previously refused to consider, letting you see the truth before they have every detail perfectly figured out. They are beginning to understand that genuine connection does not require a flawless speech. Sometimes it requires one honest sentence. And they already know exactly what that sentence would be. But there is still a reason they have not said it yet, and this is the detail that makes everything more complicated. Your soulmate wants the moment to feel sincere. They do not want their confession to sound impulsive, exaggerated, or temporary. They want you to understand that whatever they say comes after a long internal struggle, not a sudden burst of emotion. Don't skip, because their next realization may be the turning point. They have started imagining what happens after the truth is finally revealed. What if you become quiet? What if you need time? What if you ask questions they cannot answer immediately? What if you reveal that you have also noticed something between you? Every possible outcome has crossed their mind, and strangely, the possibility that affects them most is not rejection, it is discovering that you had been waiting for honesty while they were wasting precious time hiding. That thought has begun changing the way they see their silence. What once felt like protection now feels increasingly like a wall they built themselves. Stay till the end, because there is one more thing they have not told the person who questioned them. After that conversation ended, your soulmate made a private decision: the next time a genuine opening appears between you, they do not want to run from it. They may still hesitate. Their words may not arrive perfectly. They may start with something small instead of revealing everything immediately. But internally, they are closer than ever to allowing the truth to surface. And when that happens, the confession may be simpler than you expect. It may not begin with some enormous declaration. It could begin with, "There's something I've wanted to tell you for a long time." Something huge is waiting for you because behind that simple sentence could be everything they have been holding back. The moments they remembered, the future they quietly imagined, the fear that kept them silent, and the reason your presence became far more meaningful than they ever planned. But before that conversation can happen, there is another truth they need to face themselves. Someone from their past left them with a belief about love that has influenced almost every decision they have made around you. They thought they had moved beyond it. They thought it no longer mattered. Yet the closer they came to telling you everything, the more that old belief returned. And what they are finally beginning to understand about it could be the exact thing that changes what happens next. What your soulmate is beginning to understand could change the entire meaning of their silence. Long before their feelings for you became impossible to ignore, they learned to associate deep emotional connection with uncertainty. Someone from their past had once made them believe that showing too much of their heart meant giving another person the power to disappoint them. So they created an invisible rule for themselves: never reveal everything first. Never become the person who cares more. Never let another person see exactly how important they have become until you know it is completely safe. For a long time, that rule seemed to protect them. Then you appeared, and suddenly the rule began working against everything they actually wanted. Don't skip, because this is where the secret becomes far more personal. Your soulmate slowly realized that every time they pulled away from you, they were not necessarily responding to something you had done. Sometimes they were responding to an old expectation that had nothing to do with you. A meaningful conversation would happen, they would feel closer to you, and almost immediately their mind would search for reasons to become cautious. They would want to reach out, then wonder whether they should wait. They would want to show you how much they remembered about you, then deliberately act casual. They would imagine telling you the truth, then convince themselves that another day would be better. Stay till the end, because one recent realization has started breaking that pattern. Your soulmate asked themselves a question they had avoided for far too long: what if I am judging this connection by something that happened before this person was even in my life? That question stopped them. Suddenly, they could see the difference between protecting themselves wisely and allowing old fears to make new decisions. And once they saw that difference, they could not unsee it. Something huge is waiting for you, because they began looking back at your connection with completely different eyes. They remembered moments when you gave them no reason to doubt your intentions. They remembered times when they expected complications but instead experienced understanding. They remembered the little things, the tone of a conversation, an unexpected kindness, the way certain moments felt unusually easy. None of this guarantees what happens next, but inside the story your soulmate has been telling themselves, it creates one powerful possibility: perhaps they have been preparing for disappointment instead of allowing themselves to discover what could actually happen. And that realization has brought them dangerously close to revealing the secret they once promised themselves they would keep hidden. Now imagine what happened when they finally stopped asking, "How do I protect myself?" and started asking, "What do I actually want?" The answer came faster than they expected. They want clarity. They want the distance between what they feel and what they show you to disappear. They want to stop wondering whether you have misunderstood their hesitation. Most importantly, they want one opportunity to speak without hiding behind carefully controlled words. Don't skip. There is something they have privately admitted that they still have not told anyone else. Your soulmate has imagined the exact moment when they finally look at you and say what has been sitting behind all those unfinished conversations. In their imagination, they do not begin with a dramatic promise. They begin with an apology for being difficult to read. Then they tell you that their silence was never the absence of emotion. It was the result of having too much emotion and not knowing what to do with it. They would tell you that you became important slowly, almost quietly, until one day they realized they were already thinking about you differently. They would admit that they noticed your absence. They would admit that certain conversations stayed with them after they ended. They would admit that sometimes they wanted to say something meaningful and deliberately replaced it with something ordinary because ordinary felt safer. Stay till the end, because the confession goes deeper. Your soulmate has also wondered whether you already know.